Hey everyone, David here. It is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. time, and it is the long-awaited episode 8 of Season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., entitled The Well. This is the anticipated tie-in to Thor: The Dark World that Marvel announced, and I was really looking forward to it, and it's... spoilers for the episode to follow. Now, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm kind of disappointed in this episode because, in my opinion, I think this is probably the most disappointing episode in the season so far, and it kind of hurts saying that because of the fact that this is the episode that I was waiting for, because it was going to tie in with the recently released Thor: The Dark World. The problem is that it's not so much tied in with Thor: The Dark World as it is tied in to Thor mythology in general. They said that, oh, this is going to have to do with the Thor: The Dark World movie. Yeah, in a reference at the beginning where you have them literally cleaning stuff up in a museum because they couldn't afford the budget to shoot this on the set of the actual movie to show all the actual damage and destruction. So they limited the opening sequence to just being in a little museum or library or something like that where they're picking up objects and determining what is alien and what is not, or what is Asgardian. Because in this episode, the one thing that I did like is that they went ahead and distinguished the Asgardians not as gods, as deities, but more as actual aliens from another dimension. Which, if you really think about it carefully and you put things into perspective, that's kind of what Thor and Loki and Odin and everyone else are. They're kind of just aliens because, like, okay, some, I don't want to say spoilers, but some spoilery kind of details, even though they don't really give away any big plot devices from the actual Thor: The Dark World movie. But I'm just going to go ahead and give a little warning here. But in the movie, Odin tells Loki that we're not just gods. We live, we breathe, and we die. That's kind of carried on over in this episode where they kind of examine things and say the gods aren't really gods. They're more like aliens from another dimension. So I really liked that little take on the Norwegian mythology of Thor and Loki and all of them. And I liked how they managed to take that and integrate it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Cut to a Norwegian forest, and you got this couple looking for some mystical artifact. And right when they introduce this couple and they walk up to the tree and say, "We found it after all this time," I was like, this episode will have nothing to do with Thor: The Dark World, and it's just gonna have to do with some of that Asgardian mythology, sure, and it's kind of nice to see it play a role. I'm just gonna go ahead and say a role in the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Series. But you know what I would have liked better? If this episode actually tied in with Thor: The Dark World. I mean, but after that scene, I accepted the fact that this was not going to have to do with the Thor movie, and instead will be its own thing that has to do with the mythology behind Asgard and Thor and the gods and stuff like that. So I took that in stride and said, okay, I'm going to roll with this episode. But even so, this is not exactly the strongest episode in the series so far. The plot of the episode has to do with this staff that was brought to Earth by an Asgardian from Asgard from a long time ago, and these I don't know what they're called. This couple, they're like an anarchist couple of sorts. This Norwegian anarchist couple. They decide to look for the pieces of the staff to put them together and to become gods themselves, because supposedly this staff has a power inside of it that whoever holds the staff will then be filled with hate and rage, and they will be granted superhuman abilities. And I was actually kind of interested because for a brief second I thought that power inside of the staff was the ether from Thor: The Dark World. So I was like, ooh, okay, sure, we're actually literally going away from Greenwich, London, and going over to Norway where all this mythology started. But they're actually going to go ahead and take an element from the movie and carry it on over to the series. Much like the pilot took Extremis from Iron Man 3 and integrated it into the series. I like that. I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. But they never actually explained what power is inside of that staff. So for the time being, we don't know if it's the ether, whatever it's called, or not. And that's kind of disappointing. As for the anarchist group that this couple starred, and all the violence in the town or whatever, we are gods, yeah, we're gonna rebel, we're gonna take back what's ours. didn't give a flying damn about any of that stuff. I'm like, okay, it's the same kind of guys that we've seen before, not only in this show, but in plenty of other shows and movies and stuff like that. That we're gonna take back what's ours, feel the power, feel it inside of you, embrace it. I was like, stuff like this, I've seen it 1,000 times, and I just don't care for it at all in this episode. What I did care for, however, is that Ward manages to come into contact with the staff, and because of this, it fuels up rage inside of him through a memory that becomes, like he puts it, unlocked in his brain. A memory that he tried to put away for a really long time, and now because of his exposure to the staff, it has been unlocked and it's haunting him. And I like this because finally we get some backstory to Ward. We get a sense of a human in there besides being that stilted guy that's like, we gotta follow the rules, we gotta follow procedures, blah, blah, blah. But to be fair, he was actually transforming away from that even without his exposure to the staff. At the beginning, he's trying to but encourage Simmons to go up the tree, because after her experience in the FZZT episode with heights, which actually that's another thing I liked about this episode, is that they don't ignore previous events that happened in the show so far, such as Simmons jumping out of the plane in that episode, or once again Coulson's secret. The writers are not ignoring it, and neither should we. But Ward was starting to become likable on his own, so him coming into contact with this staff served more as a passage, as a vessel for us, the viewers, to get some sort of peek into his past, to see what this guy is all about, what makes him tick, and why is he the way that he is now, even if he's starting to loosen up just a little bit, especially in the past couple of episodes. So it's nice to see that little, like I said, that little peek into his history. I just hope they bring it back, because by the end of this episode, he doesn't really talk about it with any of the other characters, so I really want to see what's going on. Besides, I'm in the dark here as to what it is that was going on. Apparently, seems to be his little sister was trapped in a well, hence the title of this episode, and he wanted to help her out, but his brother didn't let him, and I was confused. But I'm hoping that this gets explored in future episodes, which is like the go-to phrase for this entire show. I hope it gets explored in more episodes. I say that so often, but it's true. While trying to wrestle this memory, Ward and the rest of the team seek out to find a way to not only cure him, but also to figure out where the other pieces of the staff are and to stop this anarchist group. And they come across this professor in Spain who's a complete geek on Norse mythology, and they consult him for guidance. But later on in the episode, it is revealed that he is an Asgardian to begin with. So I really like the twist they took with that character. And on top of that, I like the character in general. I really liked him. I like that his character relied on his wits to get around with women. And he wasn't sleazy about it, he wasn't like an asshole or anything. I actually liked his character, and I liked the actor who played him. But unfortunately, his character did one thing, indirectly, and like I said, it's not the character's fault or the actor's fault, but it just showed me how kind of dumb, at least how certain aspects of this episode were kind of dumb. I mean, the plot, the plan behind this anarchist group, what they want to do, to me it sounded kind of stupid. The way they were portrayed was stupid. Certain ways that this episode decided to film things, like literally film things, like the way the camera is set up or it cuts to things. I was like, this just feels rushed. I mean, there's no sense of pacing in this episode whatsoever. And the way it all ties up and resolves itself, very, like, oh, it's done, Ward is cured. May, who also temporarily exposed herself to the staff, is cured. They're fine. Everything's fine. Bad guys vanquished. I mean, it was just done, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this episode, because it just felt like a rushed episode. It felt like an episode that was filmed for the sake of cashing in on Thor: The Dark World. Like this was not in the original lineup for their first season, and so because they finally got the green light to go on with a full season, the guys at Marvel and ABC said, "Oh man, we got a full season, and Thor's coming out. We're actually going to be alive by the time that Thor: The Dark World comes out, so we better make a Thor-themed episode." And that's what this felt like. But fortunately, the ending of the episode left me with a interesting taste in my mouth. That was a weird metaphor. First off, it left me liking Skye more than I have in the past few episodes. I mean, here she not only showed how actually scared she was of Ward when he was going all crazy, which is actually a scene that I like because it was actually kind of intense seeing Ward about to go crazy and the characters around him are genuinely scared. And I liked how Sky was also scared, showing that besides all the jokes and the wisecracking that she always does, there is someone in there who actually cares, who not only cares for her team, but also cares for Ward. And I like that when Ward is about to snap, she actually becomes scared. You know, there's no jokes this time. She's actually kind of serious. So to have her come back at the end of the episode and say that, hey, if you ever need to talk to somebody, you know I'm good at talking, so you can always talk to me. I like that. It made me like the character more than I have in the past couple of episodes. But what was more interesting was, ooh, can we have something between Ward and May? After having an obvious connection between their experiences with the staff and how they both have a past that the staff managed to bring out of them in their minds, at the end of this episode, they look at each other down the hallway, and after coming back from the bar drinking, Ward looks at May and notices that she too has a bottle, so he figures, you know, maybe we can talk this over, and goes into the room and closes the door. Who knows? Maybe he locked it. And it brought 2 points to mind. One, much like this episode did for Ward in terms of bringing history and secrets about their past and about his past and whatnot, will we see that for May in the next episode? That way, instead of just being a character that always has that, you know, stilted face the entire time, we can actually see what makes her so stilted, just like they did with Ward. And the second thing is, will there be a triangle of sorts between Ward, Sky, and May? Now, granted, the ending of this episode does not solidify the possibility that this is going to happen between Ward and May. I mean, for all I know, they're probably just in there talking things out, but the fact that there's alcohol involved, who knows? You know, maybe the opening shot of the next episode is them in bed. If they really are in bed in the next episode, I gotta be honest, I'll respect the show for going that far. And, well, I mean, we've already had our first implication of sex in the show, but having that happen between two somewhat unlikely characters, but because they share this common factor of having this dark past, you know, I love seeing characters hook up when both of them have this bad thing that has happened to them, because they share that commonality. They hook up. It's to me, it's just a little more believable than having just one of them having that dark past and the other being like, hey, there, it's okay, or just hooking up for the sake of hooking up, or because they just happen to be boyfriend and girlfriend, or they were boyfriend and girlfriend, much like with Sky in that other episode. Here, I like it better. I don't know, for some reason, I just like it better when characters have that common factor that is not particularly a positive one. And because of that, they find comfort in each other. And if that happens with Ward and May, I would respect the writers an awful lot. And it would be just an interesting thing because of the, you know, the sexual tension between Sky and Ward that we caught glimpses of through the series so far. So I'm definitely interested to see where this goes, but only time will tell. Besides, I might be completely wrong. I mean, I was looking forward to this episode, and it ended up being a little disappointing on the fact that it didn't really tie in with Thor: The Dark World. Maybe I might be wrong, and they're probably just in there literally just talking about their past. And if anything, like I said, I'm hoping that leads to some more insight on May's past and see what makes her tick. So despite having an awful lot of intriguing and redeeming qualities, I gotta be honest, this is my least liked episode in the series so far, not only because it had several things that either I didn't care for, I felt were a little sloppy and rushed, but also because it was kind of disappointing after all the build-up of saying, hey, this episode's going to tie in with Thor: The Dark World, and it ended up being, to me, it felt like a cashed-in episode. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.8 out of 10, which is a C+. I'm still on board with this show, I'm still watching it, and it has several things that have me very intrigued to see play out in the future of the series, but definitely not the strongest episode. I'll be back next week with my review of episode 9, that is if we do have a review of episode 9, because I think at any moment now we're going to have the mid-season finale, so I'm going to go ahead and have to look up online and see how many more episodes we got before the mid-season finale, and before we have that break, and then come back for the remainder of season 1, and all that crazy stuff. So if there is a new episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. next week, you can count on me posting a review, but until then, I'll see you guys later.